Hey folks, and welcome to Reality Check. Now, have you ever had a story of a game spoiled for you? Take, say, The Last of Us. Now, it's not really a spoiler, but you know that bit where main characters Joel and Ellie mushroom zombies? Tea party? Dumbledore appears. Savage prolapse. Oh, mine! Robb Stark turns out to be a dream. What wonderful storytelling.
Now, in the Universal Book of Wisdom, right under Things Everyone Hates, alongside giant killer hornets, traffic wardens and fake bacon, you can clearly find spoilers. Why? Well, because they ruin a story, right? Well, maybe not. A scientific study carried out by UC San Diego Psychology Department, published in the Journal of Psychological Science, demonstrated that perhaps spoilers aren't as bad as we all think. The researchers gave subjects 12 short stories by authors including Agatha Christie, Roald Dahl and John Updike. Some were presented in their classical form, while others included spoilerific paragraphs inserted into the story. Each version was read by at least 30 test subjects, and these people were then asked to assess their enjoyment of the story. And you know what? The readers of the spoiled stories actually rated them more enjoyable. It seems crazy, but the subjects even preferred the spoiled versions of ironic twist stories. Take the example of a story where it was revealed before reading that a condemned man's daring escape is all just a fantasy in his head before the noose snaps tight around his neck. The same was also true for murder mysteries. So why on earth should this be the case? Well, the researchers mused that perhaps it's because it's easier to read and understand a spoiled story. Think about it. Once you know the big twist, it's simpler to piece all the clues together and keep track of the tale.
So, does this mean we should all just stop caring about video game spoilers and hell, maybe even seek them out? Well, for me, I'm not so sure, because you see, while this study was really well put together, it's just not a great analogy of how spoilers happen in real life.
Most important of all, it didn't take into account one huge factor: investment. The subjects in the study had no prior knowledge of which stories they were going to be reading, and I doubt they'd spent the last few years frantically waiting to hear what happened next to Inspector Poirot. No disrespect to Agatha Christie. But compare that with, say, Mass Effect 3. Now relax, I'm definitely not going to spoil anything, but it was the final chapter of the Commander Shepard trilogy. Big things were always going to happen. Now, I actually had the ending of Mass Effect 3 spoiled for me before I even started playing. The culprit? Online discussion, because of all the hubbub and discontent from fans concerning the story's conclusion. At the time, that really pissed me off. Not because of how the story ended actually, but because I was heavily invested in this story. I've been anticipating the conclusion of Commander Shepard's tale for years, ever since I completed Mass Effect 2, and ME2 was and remains one of my all-time favourite games. Furthermore, RPGs like Mass Effect require you to put a great deal of yourself in the game. Because of this, I would argue they have the potential to offer an even more personal experience than a book. Add to that the time investment. By the time Mass Effect 3 came out, I'd spent at least 40 hours cruising the Milky Way with Garrus and co. Add all this up and you get a heck of a lot of emotional investment. So, unsurprisingly, a lot more anger and frustration at finding out the end of the story before you even start playing. This was my experience anyway, and I was so put out that I never actually got more than 7 hours into Mass Effect 3 before giving up. Such was my annoyance.
But investment isn't the only thing I think this study missed. You see, we also need to think about the social context. You see, spoilers don't happen in a bubble or even as part of a story as they did in this test.
They happen outside of your control, at the office coffee machine, on the bus, or more often than not, online. This can result in us feeling like we have lost something, that we have somehow missed out. And loss aversion psychology teaches us that we actually feel twice as bad about losing something when compared to the relative joy of gaining something. So where does that leave us with spoilers in video games? Well, we should perhaps learn from the study that while spoilers can rightly leave us angry, annoyed and with a huge sense of loss, if it does happen, we shouldn't ever let it stop us playing these games regardless. I mean, ultimately the story itself will never actually be ruined. And that's why over the next few weeks, I'm actually going to go back and play Mass Effect 3 to the end, and try and enjoy the story for what it is.
But what do you think? Have you ever had any big games spoiled? Let me know in the comments down below by leaving a spoiler-free comment, or of course you can reach out to me on Twitter at CamFrazRob. Thanks for watching. It's not really a spoiler, but you know that bit where main characters Joel and Ellie make friends with all the mushroom zombies, and then they have that huge tea party, and of course Dumbledore appears, and then that results in them all having a savage prolapse. And then they go on journey to that mine. A mine! And who should be down there but Robb Stark? And then they all board the train to King's Cross Station, but then they wake up and it all turns out to be a dream. What wonderful storytelling.